The phase 3 runes got leaked, and I wanna talk about the warrior runes because I kinda think a lot of them do not make a lot of sense, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions on how the warrior is gonna work next phase, so let's break over them. By the way, little disclaimer here, Blizzard loves making fake data mine runes before the phase comes out, so this is not a guarantee that all the runes that you see here are real or they are actually gonna come out, especially because they are subject for change. Maybe they change their mind, that too, but Blizzard loves making fake runes to mess with data miners. So I just wanted to make that clarification before we went on. Okay, so the runes. Just like in phase 2, there is gonna be 2 new slots for runes, and there is gonna be 3 per slot apparently, because that's what we got in phase 2. So let's talk about them. First of all, the helmet ones. Shield Mastery increases all physical damage you do 10% while you have a shield equipped, and reduces the duration of disarm effects by 50%. That's pretty useless. The 10% damage though, that's pretty huge. So this is pretty much there to make sure that they kill dual wield tanking forever. They made sure with Devastate buffing it when it got too weak, they were trying to make sure that the dual wield tanking doesn't come back again, and that's basically what this rune is here. The buff is pretty huge, okay? 10% more damage doesn't just mean 10% more damage, which is 10% more threat, more or less. It also means 10% more rage, and that's a lot of rage. If you want a dual wield tank, however, there is a rune that you can kinda make work, and this is right here, Vigilance. You take the 10% of the threat that somebody else is generating to you. So let's say you got like a really strong warlock that's pumping a lot, you can kinda take advantage of their threat to get your threat, and then you can just focus on DPSing and kind of not worry about threat too much. And every time they get hit by an attack, your taunt gets refreshed. There might be some cool mechanics you can do with this, where you can do like a tank swap, or like a guy takes one hit and then you take the next hit and then he takes the next hit, and so on and so forth. You're just playing ping pong with the threat. I do not really know what that's supposed to do. As you know, guys, when you taunt somebody, you take their threat. Like, let's say somebody pulled dagger on you, and because they are above in the threat meters, if you taunt them, you gain the same amount of threat that they do have. So maybe they are trying to do something that like they gain trade with the taunt and you get trade from his taunt back to you. It's a little strange, but on paper, assuming that you're a good tank, 10% more damage is gonna outdo 10% threat of the second guy in the threat meter. Of course, if you are not a good tank, if you do not have a lot of gear, if you're in the start of the phase, for example, or if you're behind, you're a new alt warrior, this thing is gonna be pretty busted because it's gonna be a huge equalizer right there. If you got like this warlock doing boom 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 and out-threating you, you can take 10% of what they are doing and it's yours, regardless of the gear that you have. Also, the taunt reset is kinda cool for that, because whenever they do pull threat on you, that's gonna happen if you're not very well geared, you can instantly get it back. Now remember, guys, that in level 60 raids, most bosses are untauntable, so we have to wait and see what the next phase is gonna be on that regard. So far, all the bosses that we got in the leveling raids are tauntable, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start experimenting with making them untauntable. That's a huge part of the difficulty of vanilla tanking, guys. You may feel like it's easy now because whenever you make a mistake, you just taunt it back and you get aggro back. But back in like Molten Core, back in AQ40, whatever, if you lost aggro, the only way to get it back, you couldn't taunt it back. You had to get the aggro back. That was a lot harder because not only you had to build your aggro back, but you had to do it without getting rage because you weren't getting attacked by the boss. So it basically meant a death sentence if the boss wasn't tauntable. We're gonna see what they do with the mechanics next year. And this one right here is clearly an arms rune right here. Taste for blood. Whenever your rend ability causes damage, you can do overpower for 9 seconds or 1 attack. So this is pretty similar to the Cataclysm version of Overpower, where you just basically overpower on a cooldown. Rend is technically an arms ability, so it kinda makes sense that they are using an arms ability on battle stance. I find it a little concerning that there is not a single Fury rune in here. I don't know if they are too scared that Fury is gonna be busted, or if they are missing a new rune here. As you can see right here, this is an example of what could be the level 50 build in next phase. As you guys see, you can get tactical mastery, so overpowering now will be possible. I really do not like the idea of having to stance dance every 5 seconds. That's gonna get old pretty quick. And maybe it's gonna make more sense to see the arms warrior just standing in battle stance for the whole thing. But you kinda have to, if we don't get a Fury rune, okay, if we do not get a Fury rune, they are kinda have to overpower on cooldown. This thing is way too good to pass up. and the rotation is not gonna be any fun because of it, but that's not my problem. This right here is a strictly DPS one. When you do a critical strike, you enrage and you do 10% more damage. That uptime right there, 12 seconds of uptime. You are probably, if you have decent gear, you're probably gonna keep this up most of the fight, so that's a really good talent. It doesn't stack with Enrage, that's basically because if you look at the talents again, they do not want tanks abusing this. This is talent that makes the warriors, the prot warriors are viable in Fury right now. Whenever they get crit, and getting crit is possible because you are not going for defense cap anymore, 25% extra damage. The reason that they are making it so it doesn't stack is because they do not want tanks doing like a gazillion damage. That's basically it. But it will be probably the best DPS rune for both specs here. This is another rune that they are making to synergize of your crit. Whenever you crit, you can pop this ability and you get 2% attack power, and if you do more attacks, you get an additional 2%, up to 10% attack power. 10% extra attack power is not the same as 10% more damage, it's a little less, but Bloodthirst is gonna be a lot more juicy because of this, so it might outscale in Fury. So this is like for both, this is gonna be good for both, and this is gonna be good for only Fury. Finally, this right here is the reason that I wanted to make this video, because I think this one is gonna be the one that makes the most misconceptions. Sword and Board. When your Devastate and Revenge abilities deal damage, they have a 30% chance of refreshing the cooldown of your Shield Slam ability and reducing its rage cost by 100% for 5 seconds. So you have a 30% chance with Devastate and Revenge of getting a free Shield Slam. I ran the math, and at level 50, the threat that you're gonna be getting more or less with Shield Slam is 690. Nice. As you see right here, after you get 1533 attack power, Bloodthirst will still outscale Shield Slam, of course at the cost of rage and at the cost of having a cooldown. This thing is gonna have a shorter cooldown. So I think Prot Warrior will be viable, and Prot Warrior will be exceptional strong at the start of the tier before you get crit and attack power, and the problem that makes Prot Warrior not very good right now still stays in the game, and is that Prot talents suck. Let's do the comparison again just in case. In Fury you get 5% crit, you get 25% damage, you get 20% more damage, you get Bloodthirst, which will outscale Shield Slam at some point, you get 30% attack speed. In theory, if you're popping all your cooldowns at the same time and you get a crit, you have 2.04 times more damage with this. So you have a 104% extra damage in Fury. Meanwhile, what modifier do you get in Prot? You get a 15% threat. That's pretty much it. Of course, Fury outscaling Prot doesn't mean that Prot will not be good, it just means that after you get gear, Fury will be better. So how much gear are we talking about? Probably best in Slotish, something like that. So for the most of the tier, and I'm probably gonna have to go Prot myself next tier, at the start of the tier, expect to go Sword and Board. If you are still going for the Fury tank build, you're gonna take the Rampage one and you're gonna get 10% more attack power. 10% more attack power means that to outscale Shield Slam you do not need 1500, you need something like 1400 and something like that. So you will outscale it a little sooner than it might appear, but 1500 attack power is probably level 50 plus like 4 items in the raid, and that wouldn't be quite outscaling it either. I think they did a good job. If you want the glass cannon tanking build that I like, you can still go for it, it's still gonna be good, but if you want the traditional Prot build, it's still gonna be decent too. Of course, the meta will always gravitate to the one with the most damage, because the more damage the tank does, it's more damage for the raid, that's better speed clears. But it doesn't have to be that way if you do not like it. So that's all the runes we know yet about the warrior. There is a chance that these runes change. There is a chance that these runes, we get like one more rune of each slot yet. I see that there is no very good rune for the helmet in Fury yet, so there is probably gonna be one more on that side. But for the most part, I think the warrior has decent potential. If you compare it to the other runes, I think Blizzard is trying to take it down a notch with the power creep. Like, most of the runes for the other classes that you see are not as insane as the Phase 2 ones. I wanna say for the most part, the new runes that we got data mined for Phase 3, they are kinda boring. Like, there's a couple cool ones, like Felguard, for example, but most of them are something like, you do 10% more damage. That is not very fun. However, the warrior, if there is a class that wants to get 10% more damage, because that doesn't mean 10% more damage, it means a lot more, that's the warrior. So for us, it actually plays in our favor. Subscribe, leave a like, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.